Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about doing computation with scientific notation, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. When we add and subtract numbers in scientific notation, there are actually two methods that you can use. We're going to look at both of them, just decide which one works best for you and use the method that works best for you. I happen to like method 1 because with method 1 you don't have to worry about getting your exponents the same. So method 1. Change to standard notation, which is just standard form. Add or subtract. Make sure you line up your decimal points, and then you change your final answer back into scientific notation. So let's take a look at the two examples that are here. 2 times 10 to the 4th, well, that's 20,000. 7.2 times 10 to the 4th, and that will be 72,000. Add those together, I get 92,000. And the only thing I need to do now is just change it back into scientific notation, which is, move your decimal point, 9.2 times 10 to the 4th. Okay, so again, I just changed it to standard form and added. Now, the next one is subtraction, and the next one is subtracting decimals. So you always have to be careful when you're doing subtraction. First thing we're going to do is change this. Again, -5, so I'm going to move to the left. I've already got one decimal point, so I'm going to just add 4 zeros. And then I'm going to 2.3 times 10 to the -3rd. I've already got one decimal point, so I just need to add in 2 zeros, and I'm ready to go. Now, be careful when you're doing subtraction, because when you actually do the computation, you need to make sure that you're subtracting the smaller number from the larger number. You should also realize that this is going to give you a negative answer because 0.0023 is a bigger number than 0.000067. So when you line them up, you're going to start off with 0.0023, and then right underneath it, 0.000067. I need to just add 2 zeros, and then just go through and do your subtraction. Okay, that would be a 2, makes that a 9, that'll make that a 10. So 3, 3, 2, 2, 0, 0. Bring down your decimal point. But remember that that answer is negative, and it's negative because that decimal is bigger and has a greater absolute value. So now my answer is right here, negative 0.002233. Again, I need to move this decimal point to the right. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to move it back 4 places. So this will be negative 2.233. Okay, so 1, 2. Actually, I'm going to move it 3 places, not 4 places. So I'm going to move it 3 places. So negative 2.233 times 10 to the -3rd. Okay, remember you have to just keep moving until you get a number between 1 and 9, or including 1 and 9. Okay, so that's one way of adding and subtracting with scientific notation. The second way, the second method actually works fine if you have the same exponent. It's when you have different exponents that this one gets a little tricky. So if the numbers have the same power of 10, you just add or subtract the factors. However, if the numbers have different powers of 10, then you have to rewrite the numbers so they have the same power of 10. That can get a little confusing sometimes, which is why I always say it's probably easier just to change it back to standard form. But let's take a look at what this looks like. All right, both of these are raised to the 4th power, so all I need to do now is simply add 2 and 7.2. 2 plus 7.2 is 9.2, and 9.2 times 10 to the 4th power. Okay, and notice we got the same answer. Now, look at number 2. Problem with number 2 is I now have 2 different exponents. So you have to change one of them, and it really doesn't matter which one you change, but you do need to make sure that either this one is to the -3rd or that one's to the -5th. I'm just going to go ahead and change the first one, not for any reason other than I'm going to change the first one. So I need to get this to the -3rd power. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to add in 2 more decimal places. So 0.067, so 1, 2. Now this will be times 10 to the -3rd. And then I'm going to subtract 2.3 times 10 to the -3rd. Okay, so here again, I needed to move it 2 places. There's my decimal point. So I went 2 places to the left, and then I was able to change that. And see, if I went and moved 2 places to the right, then that would bring it back to 10 to the -5th. So now, again, watch the numbers that you are subtracting. 2.3 is greater than 0.067. Just add in 2 zeros. Line up your decimal point and subtract. Okay, and then when you subtract, to 2, 9, so that's a 3, 3, 2, bring down your decimal point 2. My answer is negative because 2.3 has a greater absolute value. Negative 2.233 times 10 to the -3rd. Whenever you work with addition and subtraction, you do need to make sure that when you do the adding and subtracting, that your answer is in scientific notation, which means if you have the decimal place in the wrong spot, you're going to have to change it. Okay, let's take a look at multiplication and division. With multiplication and division, you kind of have an extra step. The first thing you're going to have to do is multiply the decimal numbers, and then you're going to add the powers. Just rewrite your answer in scientific notation. Okay, so my first example. First thing I'm going to do is 6 times 4. Okay, now that's going to give me 24. I'm going to add my exponents. So 10 to the 8th times 10 to the 6th is 10 to the 14th. So I'm going to do 24 times 10 to the 14th. Now, notice the problem here. That's 24, and scientific notation says that I can only have one number in front of the decimal point. So I'm going to have to move the decimal point, and when I move the decimal point to the left, I'm going to add 1 to that exponent. So this will be 2.4 times 10 to the 15th power. So that is your answer. Cannot leave it looking like that. That is not scientific notation. And then let's just take a look at one that has negative exponents. 9 times 9 is 81. And then I have 10 to the -3rd times 10 to the -3rd, which is 10 to the -6th. Okay, so now what I need to do is I just have to make sure, in this case again, I'm going to move that decimal point 1 place. When I move that decimal point 1 place to the left, I'm going to add 1 to the exponent. 8.1 times 10 to the -5th. So what you need to do when you are working with multiplication and division is you just have to make sure that you end up with one number after the decimal point. Okay, for division, again, similar to multiplication, first thing we're going to do is we are going to divide the decimal numbers, and then we are going to subtract the powers of 10. Notice the little caution. Be careful of the order. Remember, it's going to be whatever's in your numerator minus the denominator first number minus the second. And then you're going to rewrite your answer in scientific notation. And let's go ahead and just look at these two examples. First thing I need to do then is I'm going to divide 9.6 by 3.2. Move that decimal point. I'm going to find out that that's 3. And then I'm going to do 10 to the 9th divided by 10 to the 5th. So I have to make sure that I subtract 3 times 10 to the 4th power. Okay, so again, I divided my numbers, subtracted my decimal, or subtracted my exponents. And then on number 2, this one you really want to be careful of because you're subtracting a negative number, but 1.2, and I'm going to divide that by 2.4. Again, I'm going to move that decimal point. I'm going to have to add a 0, and my number will be 0.5, okay, and then I need to take 10 to the 7th over 10 to the negative 5th, which is 10 to the 7th minus negative 5. Add a line, change the sign. 7 plus 5, that's going to give me 10 to the 12th power. But notice my number. This isn't scientific notation. So I need to make sure that I change this to scientific notation. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to move this to the right, which will make it 5. When I move it to the right, I want to subtract 1 from the exponent. And my answer will be 5 times 10 to the 11th power. Okay, make sure if you have any questions, you bring them to class tomorrow. Make sure you fill out your Google form.